Hello everybody, this is Latin Salad CJSF Radio on YouTube, and my name is Fatima Herrera and
Dolores Mora Lolita saying hello to everybody.
And today we have the honor to be interviewing Selina Robinson, and she is MLA for Coquitlam-Maillardville, and we welcome you. How are you doing?
I'm great, and I'm really thrilled to be here with the two of you today.
We are very grateful. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to interview you and asking you some questions. I'll be asking you some questions regarding your role as MLA for the provincial government. And Lolita will be asking some questions
about the federal government.
Correct.
Yeah. So Fatima will go first, and then I will be the second part of the interview.
Sounds good?
Sounds great.
Perfect.
Looking forward to it.
Well, I was reading your biography. I understand you had a home-based family therapy practice before, and I want to understand how come you went from that to becoming an MLA?
Well, it wasn't an easy switch. I have been a family therapist for well over 20 years and loved working with people, helping people understand how they can be the best they can be with the resources that they have.
Correct.
And I did a lot of work in the community, and I did a lot of work, people paying me to provide that support for them. And what I kept seeing over and over was that there were certainly some systemic issues that they were facing. So they perhaps needed a better job in order to provide better for their family, or they were not getting the resources they needed out of the education system so their children were properly supported in schools to be the best they could be. And the more I worked with people, the more I saw that perhaps I could be more effective as a politician.
Okay.
So I could actually bring some of these changes not just to my client in the room, but to the whole community. And so I was thinking about that, and then as that was going on in my head, there was the issue of homelessness in Coquitlam back in 2007, and it was a big issue in my community in Ranch Park, where I live, because a local church wanted to open up and allow homeless people to set up, with support, to set up during the coldest, wettest months a MAT program. So they would be dry.
Oh.
And my neighborhood was saying, that's terrible, we don't want those people in our neighborhood. And I thought, now that's terrible.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong
That
with that.
attitude, right?
Yes,
Especially from people who goes to church.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the people from the church that had the problem. It was people who live near the church.
Okay.
The people who go to the church wanted to help. They were prepared
Yes.
to volunteer. It was really the people in the neighborhood, and I was so disappointed because I know these people and we live in a beautiful neighborhood, and what would be so terrible about having a social service provider pick up people who are homeless down by the river or in our parks, bring them someplace warm and dry, give them contact, people could help them get off the street, maybe they needed some support, and then in the morning take them back to where we picked them up.
Right. And you know what, I think that we forget that anyone can fall into homelessness.
Oh yeah.
Anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Lolita one time, she did an interview regarding homelessness, and I mean, it was a story that you would never believe. This person having all the education and a good job and a lot of different factors will actually fall into that situation.
And no one ever plans to be homeless.
Of course
It's
not.
never what anyone plans.
And that project, who began in 2007, and they have a very successful rescue. Rescue. They have rescued some people back from homelessness to go back to job, to find a normal life.
They have a very good
rate.
But it was very instrumental for me because I found my voice, is what I say. I found my political voice, and it was my very first time ever doing anything strongly political besides voting. I've always voted, but I went to the mayor and council because they were going to make a decision about whether the church would be allowed to do this.
Yes.
And I prepared a speech at home, and I was like this at the front, right? You have 5 minutes to share your views, and I was nervous, but I thought it was important enough. And my children were in high school at the time, and I thought it was important for them to see me as a role model. When I think something is wrong, that I have to use my voice. So my daughter came with me, and I spoke at the public hearing, and it was the first time I spoke. And it was after that public hearing, I had some people come up to me, somebody on council, Finn Donnelly, who is now the MP for the area, but at the time he was a city councillor, and he said, Selina, I think you should run for council. And I said, don't be ridiculous. But he and I talked a bit more, and I ran in 2008 for city council, and I won.
Wow, that's fantastic. And you know what I was mentioning to Lolita, because as I said, I was watching YouTube videos where you are, like either in the parliament or someone is interviewing you. And I said to Lolita, I find that Selina has this compassion, but at the same time she has this strength. She has this strength because she's asking, I guess, in the parliament, an open question to the Minister of Health, and I could see your strength, like inner power, and I was like fascinated because I think you are definitely meant to be a politician.
Well, thank you.
You do a really good job.
Thank you. It's a harder job than I think people think. Because while we're in session in Victoria and you might hear little bits and pieces, there's tons of work that goes on behind the scenes. And then when we're not in session, I'm here in my constituency office and I'm representing 55,000 people who live here. Yes. And they have various issues and problems, and it's everything from I want to get my aging mother into a care facility near me and there's no room, and how do I do that because she needs more care, to my child needs to get assessed because I think there's a learning disability and they're in grade 1 and I'm told it's 4 more years before he can get an assessment and that will be too late. And so or ICBC or WorkSafe BC, I'm having a problem, they're not accepting my claim. So I deal with those, just like my family therapy practice. I'm still doing that, talking with people.
Right.
And my staff and I work with them and write letters to ministers and try to advocate on their behalf so that they can get their needs met.
Correct. That's fascinating. Thank you for doing all that for the community in Coquitlam-Maillardville.
Yeah.
Yes. So please tell us briefly about your private member bills.
So I've done 2 of them so far. So this is my first term as an MLA.
Yes.
And I've presented 2 private members' bills. The first one was called the Silver Alert Bill. Some people in Coquitlam and around might remember when Shin No went missing a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. This was a man in his early 60s who had early onset Alzheimer's. He was wandering. The family didn't know at the time that he was wandering, but he was staying at home being cared for by his wife. And he went for a walk, and he must have gotten disoriented or something, but he never came home.
That's terrible.
And it's heartbreaking. And the family did all the right things, like they called the police. The police did a quick look. They sent out search and rescue who went up into the backwoods, because that's what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. They did a look. And then after a week, they said, we have not seen any sign of him. But the family was saying that's not good enough. We have all these people in our community. Why don't we ask them? And we have social media.
Right.
Why don't we put on social media and have people look? Just look. If you're on the bus, if you're taking a walk in a park, if you see this man, call the authorities. So they created their own system, and they invited the community to go and actually look for their father. And I went out, I think it was October, or maybe it was in November. All I remember, it was cold and wet, so it was either end of October or early November. And I said to my husband, we're going out looking for Mr. No. And we put on our rain gear and we walked and we looked, and there were hundreds of people. Hundreds from Surrey and North Van, and they were all out in our community looking for Mr. No. And unfortunately, no one ever found him, but it prompted this idea that we have so many people who are outside. We have parks workers. We have fire service in our community. We have bus drivers. We have postal workers. They are outside. Is there any way to alert these people?
Okay, I see.
That when you're out doing your business and you see this person, call the authorities?
Yeah, the police says when a child is lost, the first 24 hours are critical.
Yes.
So the same happens when a grandma is lost.
Yes.
The 24 hours are critical. So in this time, they were waiting for the people to do whatever they need to do. But if in that moment all the community begins working, the history will be different.
There's many eyes, right?
Yes.
There's many eyes on the street.
All the help, all the
everything,
support.
right? And people really want to help. And I've been hearing stories since I proposed this private members bill. People have contacted me and said, I found this lady wearing a nightgown in Metrotown, ready to cross the street. It was freezing outside, and I asked her where she was going, and she couldn't tell me. So they knew right away to call the police. Right. So there's lots of that happens. People who care, and there's many people who want to care, who want to help. So, but we just need a system in place.
Definitely.
Right now, the Amber Alert that is used for children, it's a slightly different model, because when a child is missing, it's usually because they're kidnapped, often by a parent, right, or a non-custodial parent, and it's usually in a car. So that system is a different system where it goes out to all the police throughout the province, and even maybe the next province or to the states, and you're looking for a car. This is different because they're not in a car.
They're just wandering
and
around.
They're just wandering around. So it needs to be a localized system. So if they disappear here in Coquitlam, how do we let people in Coquitlam, maybe Burnaby, Port Moody, and Port Coquitlam know? We don't need to let people maybe in Richmond or White Rock or Kamloops know, because he's not going to get to Kamloops. So we need to develop a system that just it's a fan out. Unfortunately, it never made it to debate. Right now, the current government, the BC Liberals, don't debate private members' bills that come from the opposition, and I'm in opposition.
That is terrible, because one day we're going to be old as well, and we don't know if we will have Alzheimer or dementia, and I mean...
And the numbers are growing. We know there's going to be many, many, many more people with dementia, and there's not enough hospitals, so they're going to be taken care of at home. And so how are you going to watch people?
Exactly. If usually mom and dad work, right? It's not one income is not enough anymore. So who's going to be taking care of that senior?
Right. And so there's talk about having systems in place so that they have an alert that when they go outside, there's an alert that goes off or some sort of alarm. But they also will get upset if there's a bracelet on them and they take them off, and it's not foolproof. So no system is foolproof. So this is just a backup, and people really want to help. And why we wouldn't make that a reality, I don't understand. So it's just one of those things that I think just adds another little layer that doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anyone anything, and people want to help. So why not create a system that allows people to help?
Yes. And the other private member
bill? Another private members bill that I did just this last year was called an Animals in Distress bill. I became aware of this last September when the mayor and council from Kamloops proposed a resolution. They asked the provincial government to give them the power, give mayors and councils the power to allow the bylaw officers that work for municipal governments to rescue dogs who may be in overheated cars. So here we are in the hottest summer on record, and people are still bringing their dogs with them, thinking I am only going to run to the store for 5 minutes.
Yeah, but those 5 minutes is being in an oven.
And you remember what happened 2 years ago, right? The women with the 5 dogs, and they all died. It was horrible, horrible. Yes. So that's what prompted this. And so when I learned of this request, I thought that's a perfect private members bill, because it's not partisan. Like, it's not NDP want this, and it's across all party lines. This is a good thing. It doesn't cost anything, and who is going to say no to making sure that we have as many people as possible when a dog? Right now, if a dog is in an overheated car, you have to either call animal control, and in the province, I want to say there's only 16 or 18 animal control officers for the province.
Right.
So if you're here,
so by the time they get there,
it's not going to happen. So the only other people you can call to break into a car is the RCMP, the police.
And what happens? You say, well, there's
a dog in the car. Well, but they may or may not come if there's something else that's important, right? If there's a robbery in progress, or they'll come when they come. But we all know that a dog can overheat in as little as 5 or 10 minutes. So we want to try to broaden that. And you don't even have to break a window. I'm even thinking now, I'm going to bring the bill back, and I'm even thinking a little bit if we can get fire service involved. Like, can we give them the authority? Because right now that's considered breaking and entering.
Yes.
Right? It's illegal.
Yes.
So they don't even break the window. They just go in and they have a tool that unlocks the car. So they don't do any damage to the car,
Right.
but they rescue the dog. The idea is to get the dog some fresh air, because it's very, very dangerous. And I think we really need to emphasize, don't bring your dog with you in the car.
Especially the most of the time we love our pets.
Yeah.
What are you going to put in risk? But now
Yeah, it's not done with the intention to harm, right?
Right.
But there's a result that if you leave it in the car.
Well, you think, okay, I'm just on my way to my mother's house. I'm going to bring the dog, but I need to stop and pick up 3 things. And you think, I'm only going to run in for 5 minutes. The dog will be fine. And I actually saw at Costco, the beginning of the summer, back in June, it was a cloudy day. I was at Costco, and it was cool. Like, you needed a little jacket. And I came out, and the clouds had broken. I was in there for 45 minutes. I didn't have a dog with me. But there were all these people gathering around a car, and the fire service from Burnaby were all around the car trying to figure out how to get the dog out, because the sun now was out, and it was blistering hot. And I'm sure the person thought, I'm going to run in for 5 minutes. It's cool. I'll just crack the windows. Right? So the windows were cracked a little bit. And I'll be back, and it's fine. But the sun came out, and it became very hot very quickly.
That's terrible. Okay, if your party wins these 2017 elections, do you think your bills will be acted upon?
I certainly hope so. That was part of the idea. So when I want to bring forward a private member's bill, I actually talk with my colleagues, because I want people to understand what I represent, and that I'll be able to act on these things that I think are important. So when any of us brings forward a private member's bill, they can be sure that I'm going to work hard to bring that to fruition and make sure that that becomes part of our legislation going forward. And 2017 is the next provincial election.
Yes.
And I hope that we're in government and able to act on all of these things.
And I really hope that your bills get approved, because honestly,
as she said, it's not going to be any cost for the taxpayers. And they are really helpful.
Yeah, they are saving lives for the elders, in the case for the Silver Alert, and for the animals in distress, definitely. So,
but theoretically, I guess I want to stress, theoretically, these should be we should be able to discuss these now. I shouldn't have to wait to 2017.
Yeah, because what's going to happen in the period of those 5 years?
How many more lives will be lost?
Yes.
Well, but it's also, what worries me is this current government has never brought forward for debate any private member's bill that comes from opposition. If it's a private member's bill that comes from their side, yes, they debate it. See, whoever's in power determines what's going to be debated. They control the agenda.
It shouldn't be that way.
And it shouldn't be that way. If I bring something forward, let's debate it. Let's really debate it. And if enough people, there's 85 of us. If there's 43 people say yes, it's done. It's legislation.
So it's not that difficult.
I have to convince 42 other people that this is a good thing.
But those 45 people, for sure, they have a grandparent or a father that's already elder, or they have a pet that they love. So I don't see why they wouldn't even...
Right, but we don't even debate it. It doesn't even make it for discussion. So I get to write it up, think it through, present it. I present it for first reading, and everyone says, okay, that's good, but it never comes back for second reading, for debate. It just dies.
That's terrible.
It's called, we say it dies on the order papers, and then the next session I have to bring it back if I want to try to get it to debate, but it's never happened.
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best, and
Thank you.
Lolita as well, for
Thank you.
2017.